Now, why poetry? Why poetry? I'm always thinking when it comes to books, when it comes to writing, I'm always thinking not just in terms of creativity, not just in terms of delivering a particular message or whatever it is, but also in terms of the commercial, publishing. Why poetry? Why did you pick poetry, considering the fact that poetry is not as widely accepted as other genres? The fact that a lot of Nigerians, which is where Nigeria is where we are. Considering the fact that a lot of Nigerians do not accept poetry like they accept other genres.
Wow. Okay. First of all, I didn't deliberately set out, when I started writing, that I wanted to actually be a published author. Initially, I was writing to express myself. Like, there are so many things happening in the world today, good and bad. And I felt my only way to contribute, even if I can't use, like, in terms of physical action to right wrongs, I felt I could actually right wrongs with my words. So I'm expressing myself, getting more contented and satisfied that, I've expressed myself, and in my own little way, I have contributed. Poetry for me is very quick way of me to achieve that, because to write an idea that comes to my mind, I think I don't have to go through the phase of writing it out as a prose, for example. It's easier for me to write it out, pass my message, and move on.
So poetry is easier than prose for you?
I think in terms of me getting my message out very quickly, I see poetry fulfilling that for me. And I would say it again, I didn't deliberately set out that, I want to write poetry. So I just found myself writing poetry. The very first poem I wrote was Seas of Life. Very short, I think about 4 to 5 lines. That was the first poem I wrote in our flats in Coventry, in West Midlands, because I attended Coventry University. I explained the story of the time when I was there. So that was my first poem. I wanted to express myself, and that was what came to my hands, So I see it as God's gift. Everybody has different gifts. We can't all write prose. Some of us are gifted to write poetry. Probably in the future, I might end up writing prose. I don't even know.
So you never tried your hands on prose?
No, I haven't. I've been more of a poet, since I started writing.
Okay.
Since I started really writing in 2009, it's more of poetry for me, because it's quick for me to pass my message across. And in terms of what you also said about the commercialized, the commercial nature, is it really something that people would pick and buy? Like, do people appreciate poetry? Do Nigerians appreciate poetry? I would say, with everything, there is a time. It would be that right now, there's not really much appreciation for poetry. But of course, the future might tell a different story. And in anticipation for that brighter future for the genre of poetry, yes, I think there's a lot of hope for poets. Because not forgetting that, with poetry, you don't write out the words in a very easy. You don't write out the words very, how would I put it, in a literal way. Like, this is what I'm saying and I've said it. You write it in a way that is almost like, I see poetry like painting sometimes, because you are painting a canvas with your words. So for me, it might not be so commercial now, but definitely, I see a brighter future for poetry, and I'm using this opportunity to also say that we should pick up some poetry books today, if we haven't been doing so, and start reading it, because those things that we think we neglect, that there's nothing in it, there's a whole lot in it that might not only better our lives today, but obviously in the future, and even those of our children and generations to come.
What's it about poetry? What's special about poetry? Somebody out there has probably never explored poetry. What will you say to convince that person to explore? Why should anybody pick up poetry?
I would say with poetry, first of all, you have words that are saying something and might probably be saying something else. So it helps you with your creativity. It helps you to think deeper into the lines, read between the lines, and what is this author actually trying to tell me using these lines of poetry. So that's the first. It helps us to stimulate our creativity, and especially for our children, with all of, we have so much content going out today that you want to be very careful to pick content that are going to stimulate their minds, you know, and help them to be creative and innovative and to think beyond the box. I think poetry does that in terms of the way the words are written in metaphor, simile, oxymoron, all of that. So it helps us to think deeply. And secondly, I would say it helps us to also travel, you know, in our mind's journey, you know, to the painting that the poet is trying to paint. It takes us to this different place that we most probably haven't been before. And then we get to learn intricate life lessons written in very few words that might just be it that will change our lives forever. So even having been reading poetry before, I would say you've been missing a lot. Go straight on now and pick up poetry books.
Now let's explore your poetry, your poems. Now it's a very interesting book, I have to say. Now the part where there's a Woes of a Nation, you know, which reading that told me that you think a lot about Nigeria, things going on in Nigeria, and so on. And you've written, for example, Dark Sunday is about the Dana air flight that crashed.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Wow. The story behind that was, you know, it had just happened. The whole nation was in chaos, you know, even those that knew people, their families, loved ones, and even other Nigerians that probably didn't know personally anyone that was affected. But at the end of the day, we were all affected because we are all Nigerians. We are one nation, you know, one nation, one heart, one soul. And so I was sitting in my office that day. I was, you know, in deep thoughts. The whole, you know, pictures, the information on the internet and the papers, all of what I've read, you know, was just going through my head. And I felt so helpless, like, I felt so helpless. I felt so sad. And the only way I could give my soul that rest, you know, and the only way I could kind of like calm down, you know, the situation in my own little way and keep the memories alive of those beautiful people that were affected was to put it in words. And that was when I wrote Black Milk, Black Tears. I think that was one of the poems. And then I also wrote the Dark Sunday.
Dark Sunday.
Yes.
Black Milk, Black Tears.
Yes, and Dark Sunday. I wrote that, you know, in memory, in loving memory of the wonderful people we'd lost on that flight, and as a way to kind of like bring rest to my soul, you know, at that point. I'm passionate about my country. I mean, Nigeria is our fatherland. It's our own. No matter where we travel to, we are all going to come back home. You know, even if you are in the UK or in the US, deep down in your mind, you're at home. You have loved ones at home. Your heartbeat is at home. So nothing can happen at home that won't affect you wherever you are, you understand? So either directly or indirectly. So I'm passionate about Nigeria. I'm passionate about a better Nigeria. When I see occurrences around me, you know, in my country, the only way I feel I can, you know, write certain things I'm seeing around is to write about it, you know, as a form of poetry. So that's why I have that column titled Woes of a Nation. Woes of a Nation is about a strong people going through troubling times but looking at the sun that is about to shine. There are brighter times for our country, and I feel, there are better times ahead. Definitely, yes.